Well, we're continuing our series with the elders, and this time we've got Uncle Des Williams, who's a Bundjalung elder. And Uncle Des, can you introduce yourself for us?
Yes, my father was Bundjalung. He came from around Tabulum, and my grandfather and great grandfather all from around that area, Mully and Tabulum itself. And my mother comes from the Nambucca River. I grew up most of my life on the Nambucca River. I was born at Mullumbimby, and we lived up near Billy Nudgel for a while, and then moved down to Nambucca. She was a member of the Waddy family down at Nambucca, and I finished my high school at Lismore, at a boarding college at Lismore, and from there I went to Sydney, and became an aircraft maintenance engineer, and the rest is history, as they say.
Absolutely, and some of that history is what we're going to talk about as we go through. What we're talking about today is your connection as an elder with education. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey with education? You mentioned you went to boarding school.
Yeah. I finished off my high schooling down at Lismore, as I said, at St John's College, Woodlawn. It's a Catholic boarding college, and after my last 3 years there, I went to Sydney, and went to Sydney TAFE, or Sydney Technical College. It was in those days. TAFE wasn't around then. And I studied aircraft engineering with Qantas at Mascot Airport. Later on in years, after I moved away from Sydney and gave up the aircraft mechanics work, I joined a community college in Lismore, and I did a business course with them. And after I finished that, I got onto the board. I became a board member of the North Coast Institute for Aboriginal Community Education.
Mm.
It was there before the Southern Cross Uni came to town.
Mm.
And we were supposed to have we did have a presence at the uni, and then our institute folded, and what was it back in those days?
Jundal Jindabar.
Gungal Jindabar took over from us, and they became a part of the uni, and then Ginnaby came after that.
Mm.
That was my education standpoint, I suppose.
Mm.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talk about is our formal education, which you've just given us the highlights of. You're also recognised as a cultural leader in this community and this area. Where did you get your cultural education from? Where did that come from?
From my mother's side.
Right.
I didn't know a whole lot about my father's side. He wasn't really a cultural man. His brother Gwen's father, Clive Williams, he was a cultural man, and I got some of the Bundjalung side from him, but I really grew up in my mother's culture, the Gumbaynggirr people in the Nambucca River. My grandfather, or my grandmother's brother, was the last of the fully initiated clever men from the Nambucca River. And he taught me some, although he wasn't so giving, as far as everything was very hush-hush with him, because there was a lot of secrets around the bush, probably to keep us safe, keep us from getting into trouble. But my grandmother and my mother were pretty forthcoming with bush education. And my uncles down there at Nambucca, they taught me a lot about the bush. There was an old man, Les Nixon. He come from around Coffs Harbour, but he used to stay with us at Nambucca, and he taught me a lot. We had an old man from Grafton who used to come down, Uncle Harold Taylor, and stay with us. And he was a clever man, but he did a few bad things in his day. He killed some people in the old traditional way. And wherever he went, people were scared of him. And but he was great with us. And he'd tell us stories. Fairly tricky stories. Like ghost yarns and that sort of thing. But he was good. And that's really, the Nambucca River is where my cultural upbringing, if you like, came from. Mum wouldn't let me loose up around the Bundjalung area because I loved walking around the bush and finding things, and she was always frightened that I'd walk on the wrong place in the bush, and that'd be the end of me. Of course, those old people were pretty savage in the old days. If you walked in a place where you shouldn't have walked, you'd either get very, very sick or you'd die. Yeah. And so my cultural upbringing came from the Nambucca River. My brother and I, Gary, he's part of Ginnaby, we waited for our turn to be initiated into the Nambucca tribe, get our initiation. But before we could do that, Grandfather Lambert Waddy said, they all met, all the old people met at a place called Willawarren, west of Kempsey. And they all burnt all of their spears and boomerangs and said from this time onward there'll be no more initiation on the north coast. Because the farmers had barbed wire fences and they had guns, and they'd threaten the old blokes, threaten to shoot them or get the coppers onto them if they tried to walk across their paddocks to get to the initiation spots. So they closed it all down, and we didn't get to do it.
So that would be about somewhere in the mid-50s, wouldn't it?
Yes, in the probably around about 50. Yeah.
So that put a little bit of a slowing down on cultural education
Yeah, it
from that
buggered
point
us
on?
up.
Yeah.
Because, as I said, we were ready to do it. All turned up. We were scared, but we were ready to go through with it. And nothing happened for us.
Mm.
The last one in Nambucca was up one of the creeks called Worrell Creek,
Mm-hmm.
and they all had to row up there. All the old men and the young fellas had to row up across the Nambucca River and then up Worrell Creek. And there was a young white boy there. He lived in town and he used to knock around with all the black fellas. And he asked the old fellas, could he come and get done too? And they told him to get lost. So he swam the river and he swam up the creek, and they pulled the boats over to the side and told him to get in the boat, otherwise he was going to drown himself. And they put him through the first stage initiation because he wanted to do it. He's one of the very few, if not the only one, white man on the Nambucca River to get done. He beat us, me and Gary.
Oh dear. Yeah. So now you spend time teaching young people, cultural stuff and.
Yeah. One of the main things that I do, apart from taking people out to sacred sites, is to get rid of the spirits from people's homes. They can be either very nasty or just a torment. And it's best to get rid of them, clear them out of the house, so those families can enjoy living in their home. And I don't mind doing that. I don't charge people for doing that, unless they've got a lemon tree in the backyard.
Cost them a lemon.
Yeah. But no, it's something that I do, and I believe I'm meant to do that, because people, it's hard enough raising a family in today's world without that sort of stuff happening. When you come home, you want to come home and enjoy your home, not have to struggle with bad spirits in your house.
Absolutely.
But I do that, and I do that free of charge. When I find sacred sites out in the bush, I take our land council rangers or sites officers out there, and we look after, say, burial places out in the bush, stop people from desecrating them, and stone arrangements, if we find them intact, we protect them, or if they're partially destroyed, we'll make sure that what's left there stays in that condition. There's a lot of people that they pick up stone axes and stuff like that out in the bush, and the spirits follow those axes back home, and then we have to go and pacify those spirits, and take the axes or whatever the implement, we take them back and bury them there. We had a stone axe at the museum, at the land council one time, and I found this burial place back of Mullumbimby, And as soon as I found the burial place, he started visiting the Land Council office
Mm.
because we had a stone axe there that belonged to him. And Louina, my daughter, who's the CEO there, her and the other girls working there, they asked me to come in and see what I could do. And I had a yarn with that old man. And he died before Captain Cook come along, so he was a really old bloke. And I had a yarn with him. And he said, I want my stone axe back. So I said, oh, fair enough. And, well, I asked him why he was tormenting the girls there, and he said, I want my stone axe back. So I took it back to up on the Kunyam Range, behind Mullumbimby, the high ground. And they were buried in burials about as big as that. All the bones had been gathered together after all the flesh had gone away, and they'd wrap the bones up in bark and bury them in the ground. Sorry, Durkee, I shouldn't be talking about that. But the burial places were small, and there were hundreds of them buried, and they were shoulder to shoulder. And I had to find this old man's bones in amongst all of that cluster. I eventually found it, and I dug a hole just off to the side of him. I didn't want to dig down the middle. I might have hit him on the head with the shovel, and he might have hit me on the head then.
That's right. That's right.
I buried that stone axe there. No more trouble at the Land Council.
Mm.
That's all he wanted. He was very happy after that.
And that's, that's really important, that there's a recognition of what's going on in the present and how it relates to the past. And I think from our cultural perspective, it's not lineal, it's circular. Everything goes around and everything's connected. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. We've got a couple of young blokes around the place here now who are seriously interested in the old cultural ways. My son, I've taught him since he was a young fella, baby. And he's very comfortable with cultural ways. There's also young bloke, Kyle Slab, here on the Tweed. He's very knowledgeable. And I've got another nephew down at Gunnellabar. His name's Marcus Ferguson.
Oh, yes.
He comes from Cabbage Tree Island.
Mm-hmm.
He's like my sister's son. He's very knowledgeable. Good. He's an excellent researcher.
Marcus is going to be doing some work for us, and we're going out to his property for
Great.
Caring for Country.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go wrong there with Marcus.
No, that's really important. It's really important that knowledge continues to grow and to be understood and to be passed on.
He found a couple of old photos of my great-grandfather and great-grandmother in the records that he brought up. And he sent them up to me on my phone, which is great. Until that time, I'd never had a photo of my great-grandparents. My grandfather, Walter Williams, he worked with the police as a tracker over in Casino. He wasn't part of the black police, thank goodness, or the native police. They were murderers.
Mm.
They killed their own kind. The white police had dragged them into it. We want you to kill all these people down here. And they'd go and do it, which was terrible.
Mm. Mm. So as we move through, you've had a fairly long connection with the Land Council up here in the Tweed,
Yeah,
and you educate the council on sites, so that you can you talk about how they've been receptive to being educated.
Yeah, we had a long period of time when we fought with the local Shire Council. They'd block us in every way they could when we put in a land claim. They'd block it by saying, and it was the same all over New South Wales.
Mm-hmm.
They'd say it was there for an essential purpose, and they needed that particular piece of ground. But up until the time we put the claim in for it, it was a forgotten piece of ground.
Mm.
But we didn't mind. We just fought them in the Land and Environment Court, and we got a few wins. They got a few wins. But we fought with the local Shire Council for years. They just didn't want to help us along. And then, this bloke, Max Graham, I think that was his name, Dick? Maxie Graham, the mayor of the local Shire Council. Anyway, he decided to work with us, and he convinced the rest of the councillors to work with us, and things started to settle down for us. Mm. And we've had a really great run with the Shire Council here for a long time now, which is great, you know. We got sick of fighting them, they got sick of fighting us. And the parliamentarians like Jeff Provost, they seem to come on side when it's not against the party line.
Mm.
There's never been an independent up here. If we had independents here, they wouldn't have to worry about the party line. They could help us in any way they wanted to. But yeah, we've for a number of years now we've been in a good place with the Shire Council, and we did a big planning exercise. We went out into the countryside and searched for as many sacred sites or sites of significance that we could find, and we put them all down on a map for the Shire Council. And we put in a document that showed you how to work the map.
Mm.
The map itself wasn't any good here unless you had a how-to piece of document that'd show you how to use it. And it turned out, we weren't planning it that way, but it turned out that we were the only Aboriginal Land Council in New South Wales that had this map in conjunction with the local Shire Council. And whenever we had statewide land council meetings, everyone wanted that for their own land council.
Mm.
And so we said we'd help them set it up, as long as their Shire Council would come to the party. And Ballina Shire Council came to the party, Coffs Harbour, Kyogle. I think that's all that we helped. Those areas are fairly well populated, so a lot of their sites are in danger of being destroyed by developers.
Mm.
But they came on board, and the Shire Councils tried to come on board as much as they could. Well, the Byron Shire came on board as well. They really didn't have an option because the Tweed Shire Council had already done it,
Yeah.
and we'd already mapped their particular Shire Council boundaries. So they we didn't drag them in kicking and crying. They pretty much came on board of their own volition. So the two Shire Councils that our land council joins up, both of them are fairly happy to work with us, thank goodness. We try to make it as painless as possible for them. Yeah, well, I came into this land council right at the beginning, my wife and I, and we'd been a part of it all the way along. My eldest daughter was a chairman of the land council at one stage, Ebony Williams, and my second daughter, she came into the land council straight out of high school.
Oh, okay.
She'd never had any other job, Louina, and she went from secretary up to CEO in the land council, and she does tremendous work with the land council in meeting and greeting other people from outside the land council, and introducing school kids to the work that the land council does, and all of that sort of thing. She's a tremendous worker. Louine is her name, Louina Williams.
She's also done work for us at Caring for Country.
All right.
with the land council and stuff.
Yeah, I know. She's been down to a couple of our elders' meetings.
Yes.
At Lismore.
Yes. No, that's good. Well, speaking of our elders' council that you are a very important part of, can you talk to us a little bit about why that's an important thing for you?
It's really important to me because our elders tend to get forgotten, and when people die, old people die, you often hear people say, oh, that person, he or she's taken a lot of knowledge to the grave. And that's one of the big reasons why I like being a part of the Genevie Elders, because I don't want all of that old knowledge to be gone, lost when people die. I want what they had to say to be recorded, and their knowledge to live on into the future, so that young people can get that knowledge as they grow older and become elders themselves. They need to have a step up. It's very hard to, almost impossible to become an elder without any grounding. If you haven't got that grounding, then you're lost. People, and we've had people, they go around telling people, oh, I'm the custodian for this, I'm the custodian for that, I'm a storyteller in the old way, I'm a songman, and unfortunately they know nothing. And their take on their own importance changes the real history of the country. And the unfortunate thing is, if you don't have an elders group like Ginnaby has, you don't know who to go to and ask questions. And 9 times out of 10 you'll go to these gammon people that don't really know. And if you're an institution like the uni, you'll write their slant on history down.
That's right.
And it'll stay in the books, and until someone, or forever, but if someone spots it and says, no, you're wrong there, that's wrong, then if you haven't got someone keeping an eye on that, it goes down as history. And our cultural history is forever changed.
Absolutely. And that's really important, and that's an important aspect of what the council does. And unfortunately, when it's written down and recorded, the wrong information's written down and recorded, unfortunately it does stay, even if someone corrects it.
Yeah. That other person that wrote that stuff will argue black and blue, Oh, he's wrong. My stuff is right. People get full of their own importance.
That's true.
And they want to be remembered or regarded as in that fashion. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. It's their slant on history, and they don't care whether it's true or not, as long as it paints them in a good picture.
Well,
And anyone who wants to do that with history, then they're not real.
no, I agree.
They're troublemakers.
And we get the odd one of those too.
Yes. We know a couple up here.
Yes. So anything else that you would like to add in closing?
Only that, one of the things I'd like to say is that I feel really privileged to be a member of the elders from the Southern Cross Uni. We've got a really great group of people that we work with, speak to and communicate with, and I feel extremely privileged to be a part of that group of elders.
As I say, you're a very valued member of that group, and so we thank you for your contributions.
Thank you, Stuart.
All right.